Today we're starting 4.3, and the title of today's lesson is Solving Two-Step Equations. Before we get started on that part, I do want you to look at your blue papers that you have there on your desk about words into math. So a lot of times when we have plus, these are some different words that have to do with plus, okay? Over here, these are different words that have to do with minus. Does anyone see a word there that looks unusual that you might not think about normally when you think about subtracting or minusing something? Which one? Difference. A lot of times we don't think about that, but anytime you see what is the difference between two things, that means to subtract, okay? These are some different words that have to do with dividing, and these ones over here have to do with multiplying. Next, you'll see we're going to focus on the equal sign. What's the biggest word there that really means equals? Is. You'll see that a lot of times in our word sentences. And then if you have not yet down at the bottom, we'll talk about parenthesis words and turnaround words later, but I just want you to be reminded and remember that a number always will equal a variable. Let's look at our notes, and we're going to write the word sentence as an equation. If this says 5 plus a number x is 20, what would that say as an equation? What do you think, Amira?
5 plus x equals 20.
Very good. Write it down. This next one, we kind of mentioned it a minute ago, the difference of. What sign goes with the difference of? Subtract. So let's put a subtraction. And then it says the difference of a number m and 4. Which do you think will go first, the m or the 4? The m, because when reading it from left to right, it needs to also be just like the original problem. And then it says is negative 2. What will we write for that? Equals negative 2. And the final one here for the word sentence, it says a number divided by 2. Now remember in our class, I actually don't want us using this little symbol. What do we use when we see divided by? A fraction bar. So let's write the fraction bar. It says a number. Whenever it says a number, remember the bottom of our paper told us we're going to just put a variable. Let's just use an x. X divided by 2, and then it says equals 5. We'll simply write equals 5. Does everybody understand how to write word sentences as equations? Okay. All right, let's look at a few rules. The first thing, Rule A says you're going to add or subtract before you do anything else. Rule B says then you will multiply or divide. And finally it says never move the number that is attached to the variable first. If you look at my example down here, what number is attached to the variable?
3.
The 3. So I want you guys to actually take your red pen and draw a heart around these. I'm going to say, like here I just said, don't move the number that's attached to the variable. Here's why. That number attached to the variable, they're like best friends. They want to be together forever, okay? They can't stay together forever, but they'd like to be together as long as possible. So first things first, class, identify the variable. What is it? X. Now there are two things that are not allowing the x to be alone. I want you to look at this right here. It's either add by something, subtract by something, multiply by something, or divide by something. First thing, what is not allowing the x to be alone? Multiply by 3. Okay, remember guys, when you have a number next to a letter, that means you're multiplying. So multiply by 3 is not letting it be alone to the left of the equal sign. What else is not allowing it to be alone?
Add by 6.
Okay, remember we're going to use these words up here, so not just plus 6, but add by 6, okay? We're going to be using this little fluffy cloud up here each time. I want you to tell me whether it's add by, subtract by, multiply, or divide by. Okay, so we're going to do some examples, and we're going to need to use those rules. It asked us to solve the equation and then check our solution. First things first, are there any best friends you see there?
2.
Very good. Take your red pen and I want you to draw a red heart around it. Once again saying those two are best friends and they want to stay together as long as possible. According to Rule A, read me what Rule A says that you wrote down. Add or subtract. Guys, you can see x is my variable. There are two things not allowing it to be alone. What are they? Multiply by 2 and add by 12. What do I get rid of first? I am not going to get rid of this. Remember what I said? Those two are best friends. They stay together as long as possible.
Add by 12.
Okay, we're going to get rid of the add by 12. What is the opposite or the inverse of add by 12? Subtract by 12. So I'm going to subtract by 12 on both sides. If you remember, we talked about this before. It's really important to keep your work neat, so you want to drop that equal sign directly below where it was before. On the left side, what happens to plus 12 and minus 12? That cancels out. The only thing left on the left side is what? 2x. Now we're going to focus on this side, 4 minus 12. Same sign or different sign? Same sign, add and keep, different signs, subtract and take. What do you get? Negative 8. Remember, our whole goal is to get the variable by itself. Is the variable alone? No. What is not allowing the variable to be alone? Multiply by 2. Thank you for not just saying 2, but multiply by 2. What's the opposite of multiply by 2? Divide by 2. What you do to one side, you've got to be fair and do it to both sides. Okay? On the left side, class, what happens to 2x divided by 2? They cancel out, and now we are left with x all by itself. Equals. Remember the rules we have over here for multiplying and dividing. You've got to count how many negatives there are. There's only one. That's an odd number of negatives, so my answer has to be negative. What is the final answer? Negative 4 is correct. Please box in the answer because we figured out x equals negative 4. Remember, your ultimate goal is to get that variable by itself. It also asks us to check our solution. So drop down the equal sign first. Do you guys remember how to check a solution? Rewrite the original problem. So right here it says 2 times x plus 12 equals 4. Do we know what x is?
Yes.
Negative 4. So we're going to actually, let's just erase this x, and we're going to put a negative 4. Should I just put the negative 4 there right next to it? You've got to put parentheses. If it means 2 times x, then it means 2 times negative 4. Now we're going to be moving from left to right. Let's start with this. Class, what's 2 times negative 4? Negative 8 plus 12 equals 4. All we're doing is just dropping down the things that are in front of it or right on top of it, okay? Let's drop down the equal sign. Focus on the left side. Class, what is negative 8 plus 12? Positive 4 equals, and then all I'm doing is just taking this and dropping it down. Does 4 equal 4?
Yes.
Yes. Give yourself a mini check mark because it did check out. Problem B, first things first. Everybody, identify the variable. X. What is not allowing x to be alone on the right side? Multiply by negative 3 and add by 5. Who should I keep together the longest? Very good. Why? They're best friends. They get to stick together as long as possible because it's a number that's attached to the variable. And rule A told me I have to add and subtract first before I multiply and divide. What do I get rid of first? Add by 5. Einar, what's the opposite of add by 5? Subtract by 5 and do it to both sides. I'm going to drop down the equal sign. Angeline, what is 2 minus 5? Okay, and then take the sign of the larger number. Negative 3 is correct. Talila, what happens to plus 5 minus 5? It cancels out, and on the right side, I'm only left with negative 3x. Girls, am I finished?
No.
Why not?
Because the x is not alone.
The x is not alone. Boys, what is not allowing the x to be by itself? Multiply by negative 3. Boys, how do I get rid of multiply by negative 3? Divide by negative 3. And remember, what you do to one side, you got to do it to the other. Drop down that equal sign. Remember, once again, you want your equal signs to be lined up so your work is nice and neat. On the left side, what is negative 3 divided by negative 3? 1. A number divided by itself always equals 1. Think 10 divided by 10, 1. 20 divided by 20, 1. 5 divided by 5, 1. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 is also 1. Okay? So that's kind of how this is happening. When we say it cancels out, those are equaling 1x. And we don't need that 1x there, so we just get rid of that 1. So the answer is 1 equals x. Okay? You don't have to put the 1. Nope, because it's imaginary. All right. Now I'm going to rewrite the original problem. So remember, we're taking this right here, and I'm just rewriting it down there. 2 equals negative 3 times x plus 5. Since we know what x is, what do I plug in for times x? Okay. And remember, you don't want to just stick the 1 like this. You want to actually put in parentheses showing that you are multiplying by 1. All right, on the left side of the equal sign, the 2 just drops down. Ava, what is negative 3 times 1? Negative 3, and then I bring down my plus 5. Drop down your equal sign one more time, and the 2 on the left just drops down. Hayden, what is negative 3 plus 5? Positive 2. Class, does 2 equal 2? Give yourself a mini check mark because it checked out, and that is a true statement. For problem C, everybody identify the variable. M. What is not allowing the M to be alone? Divide by 2 and add by 6. Who do you think the best friends are here? M divided by 2. Thank you for saying M divided by 2, not M over 2. I want to understand that you know what it means when an M is over a 2. That fraction bar means to divide. Okay, those are best friends. It's attached to the variable, so don't touch that divide by 2. First, we're going to get rid of add by 6. Brayden, how do I get rid of add by 6? Subtract by 6 on both sides. On the left side, I'm left with M divided by 2. This cancels out. And Matthew, what is 10 minus 6? 4. Trenton, am I finished? No, the variable is still not alone. What's not allowing the variable to be alone, Trenton? Divide by 2. How do I get rid of divide by 2? Very good. Multiply by the exact number. So if I multiply the left side, I also have to multiply the right side. Isaac, what is 2 divided by 2? 1. So this over here cancels out, and to the left of the equal sign, I'm left with an M. Huang, what's my answer? M equals 8 is correct. Box it in. Who would like to check it for me? All right, Noah, how do I check this? Very good. Let's rewrite the original problem. M divided by 2 plus 6 equals 10. So let's plug in something for that M. I'm just going to erase it and put an 8 because I know that it is an 8. All right. Noah, on the left side, what's 8 divided by 2? 4. Drop down plus 6 equals 10. Okay, I'm going to drop down my equal sign. And Noah, what's 4 plus 6? 10. Drop down the other 10. Noah, does 10 equal 10? You are correct. All right, so it did work out. This next note tells us that we need to combine the like terms before solving. We've done this before. We did it in chapter 3. As you can see, the 3y and the negative 8y are both in what family? The y family. So class, what is 3y minus 8y? Negative 5y, because you have to take the sign of the larger number. Now we have a problem that looks like the normal problems we have been doing. Identify the variable. Y. Hope, what is not allowing y to be alone? Not a subtract by 5. Remember, when you have a number next to a letter, what does that mean? It means to multiply, okay? So I'm trying to multiply by negative 5. How do I get rid of multiply by negative 5? Not divide by 5. Divide by, you're right, you have to divide by the exact number that is there. So we're going to divide by negative 5 on both sides. This will cancel out, and I'm left with y equals, Matthew, what does it equal? Not 5. Negative 5, okay, because there was only 1 there. That's an odd number, which means my answer has to be a negative. Now we're going to check it out. When I check it, I just rewrite the original problem. 3 times y minus 8 times y equals 25. Talila, what am I going to plug in for my y's? You got to look back at what your answer is. What's my answer? So, Talila, should I just put -5 like this right next to it? You are correct. Why am I putting it in parentheses? Okay, when we put things in parentheses, it reminds us to multiply, right? So let's work from left to right. First thing, let's do this one. Class, what's 3 times -5? -15. Now look carefully. I have a -8 times a -5. What's that answer? Positive 40, because when you multiply two negatives together, you get a positive. And then we'll drop down our equal sign and our 25. Just focus on the left side over here. Same sign or different sign?
Different.
Same sign, add and keep, different sign, subtract, and then take the sign of the larger number. What is it? Positive, what's -15 plus 40?
25.
Positive 25. Drop down your equals and your 25. That is, in fact, a true statement that 25 equals 25, so you're going to give yourself a mini check mark. The next one, does anyone see something I can combine like terms? The 4 and the +3. Guys, do you remember what those numbers that stand alone are called? Constants. Good job. And then this 2y is the only one there in the y family. So we'll circle it. Looking at that, what should I do first? The variable term or the constants? Always put the variable term first. And then let's combine 4 and 3. What do you get? +7. Drop down your equal sign and your -9. Now this looks like a normal problem that we've been working through today. Huang, what should I do next? Okay, here's what I want you to remember about that. Before I do that, these guys are attached together. You remember us talking about that? They're best friends. So never move the number that's attached first. Instead, what should I get rid of? Okay, we're going to subtract by 7 on both sides. Over here, this cancels out. I'm left with 2y equals, and then I want you guys to put what the answer equals. Guys, what's -9 minus 7? All right, I hear -2, +2, -16. Listen, guys, same sign or different sign? Same sign, add and keep. Add the numbers, keep the sign. What do you get? -16, because you got to keep the sign. Am I finished?
No.
No, the y is not by itself. What's not allowing the y to be alone? Multiply by 2. Remember, it's not add by 2. Okay, because when a number is next to a letter, it means to multiply. How do I get rid of multiply by 2?
Divide by 2.
Divide by 2 on both sides. This cancels out. And now we've got the rules over here for multiplying and dividing. There's only one negative. So is my answer going to be positive or negative? It will be negative. And what's 16 divided by 2? -8. All right, now we're going to check it. Drop down your equal sign. I have 4 plus 2 times y plus 3 equals -9. Instead of that 2 times y, what am I going to plug in? 2 times -8. So I drop down 4 plus, guys, what's 2 times -8? -16. So if I'm adding a -16, that just means subtract 16 plus 3 equals -9. Let's go ahead and add our positives together. 4 and 3. What is 4 plus 3? 7. So now I really have -16 plus 7 equals -9. Looking at this problem over here, a negative and a positive. Same sign or different sign?
Different sign.
Same sign, add and keep. Different sign, subtract, and take the sign of the larger number. What's -16 plus 7? Negative 9. Do those equal each other? Yep. Give yourself a check mark because it did check out. How many of you guys love it when there are fractions? How many of you would rather have a whole number than a fraction? I think that's true for most of us. Well, here's an interesting fact. You can eliminate fractions. That means get rid of fractions before ever solving a problem like this. And here's what you have to do. You have to find the LCD. Everyone say LCD? That is the least common denominator. Okay, so that means the number that all the other denominators can fit into. If you're looking for that, you look for the biggest denominator. Guys, what's the biggest denominator here? 8. I want to get rid of that 8. That's a divide by 8. What's the opposite of divide by 8? Multiply by 8. So if I want to get rid of that, I can multiply by 8 on the top. If I do that to the first term, guess what I have to do to the second term?
Multiply by 8.
Also multiply by 8. If I do that to the first two terms, guess what I have to do to the third term? Multiply by 8. Now this is going to allow us to clear out these fractions and get rid of the denominators. Let's focus on the very first one. X times 8 divided by 8. What happens to those two 8s? They cancel out, and what am I left with? Just an X. Everyone drop down the X. What sign do you see next? A negative or a minus. Looking at 1 times 8 divided by 2, can I cross-reduce anything? Yes, 2 and 8 become 1 and a 4. So with this little thing right here, what does that become, class? Just a plain old 4. 4 over a 1, but if you want to simplify it, you would just put 4. Drop down your equal sign. Notice there is a negative here, so that means I'm going to drop down that negative. Now I'm going to focus on this part. Can I cross-reduce anything there? What do the 2 and 8 become? 1 and 4. So now we're going to multiply across the numerator. What is negative 7 times 4?
Negative 28.
Negative 28. Okay, and that's over a 1, so I can basically get rid of it. All right, now this looks like a normal problem. How many of you would rather have this problem than the original problem? Okay, as would I. And this is actually the same exact problem. We just got rid of the fractions. If you look at this, what's not allowing the variable to be alone?
Negative.
Subtract by 4. How do I get rid of subtract by 4?
Add by 4.
Add by 4. What you do to one side, you got to be fair and do it to the other side. Okay, so I drop down my X. These cancel out. Let's focus on this. Same sign or different sign?
Different sign.
Same sign, add and keep. Different sign, subtract and take. What's negative 28 plus 4?
Negative 24.
Negative 24. Okay, so the answer is X equals negative 24. We're going to plug it in to our original problem, which was X divided by 8 minus a half equals negative 7 halves. Instead of that X, what will we put?
Negative 24.
Negative 24. So let's erase that and replace it. And remember, we don't like fractions, so I'm going to allow you guys to get rid of them by getting the LCD. What's the least common denominator, or what's the greatest number that all of them can fit into? The 8. Okay, we're just focusing on denominators here. So if I want to get rid of divide by 8, I multiply it by 8. Okay, we do it to each of our terms. What happens to the 8 divided by 8? And I'm left with just a negative 24. Bring down your minus sign. Let's cross reduce the 8 and the 2. They become 1 and 4. So I have now a minus 4. Bring down your equal sign. It's a negative, so I'm going to also drop down the negative. Cross reduce the 2 and 8. They become. And then when you multiply this out, what do you get? Okay, negative 28. Let's focus on the left side. Same sign or different sign?
Same sign.
Same sign, add and keep. Negative 24 minus 4 is? Negative 28. Drop down the other negative 28. Do those check out? Yes. Give yourself a mini check mark. All right, starting off, you could see there is a number attached to the variable. So we're going to keep the 4 as long as we can. I want to get rid of the plus 5. So I subtract 5 to both sides. And I get 4x equals what, guys? Negative 2. How many of you would say you did get this far? All right, as I walked around, I saw most people with this. What is not allowing the variable to be alone? Multiply by 4. How do I get rid of multiply by 4? Divide by 4. Now this is the mistake I saw a lot of people make. I'm left with x equals, how many of you would say you got this far? And many people wrote this, negative 2. It is not negative 2. Let's think about this. The negative is correct, but class, what would 2/4 be reduced? 1/2. That's not the same thing as a 2. Okay, 2 over 4 means reduced 1 over 2, and it was a negative. Okay, if you didn't get that, that's okay. Just erase the part that you messed up on and fix it. Final problem of the day says, are the equations 3x plus 12 equals 6 and negative 2 equals 4 minus 3x equivalent? Remind me again, what does equivalent mean? Equal. So let's start with this first one right here. Try to do that one on your own. All right, Ava, help me out with this one. We know 3x is going to stay together as long as possible. Then what should I do? Subtract 12 on both sides, and you're left with 3x equals what? Negative 6, and then I have to divide by 3 on both sides, and what do you get? What's 6 divided by 3? Very good. Okay, so x equals negative 2. All right, that's the first one that we figured out. Now we want to see if they are equivalent. How many of you would say you figured that out, that x was negative 2? Very good. If you didn't, that's okay. Erase it and fix it. Let's go on to the next one. I want you guys to try the next part on your own. Is there anyone here who we would consider best friends? Negative 3x, okay? They stick together because it's a number attached to a variable. So I'm going to get rid of first the plus 4 by subtracting 4. Negative 3x gets dropped down. This gets canceled out. What's negative 2 minus 4? Negative 6, okay? Same sign, add the numbers, keep the sign. If you don't have this in your notes, erase it and fix it. What is not allowing the x to be alone? What about negative 3? Multiply by negative 3 is not letting it be alone. So I have to do the opposite. What's the opposite of multiply by negative 3? Okay, divide by negative 3. Once again, please be reminded, if this was a negative 3 there, I have to also divide that exact coefficient or that exact number attached to the variable. Drop down the equal sign. X equals, what's negative 6 divided by negative 3? Positive 2. When you have two negatives, your answer is a positive because that is an even number. So looking at that one and then looking at this one, my question is, are they equivalent? No. And then it asks you to explain. Negative 2 and positive 2 are not equivalent. So be careful, those signs can change a lot of things, okay? That is the end of this section. This is the last and final section that you will need to know for your quiz coming up on Monday over 4.1 through 4.3.